for a society that has figured out how to assemble flat pack furniture, I'm like, okay, it can't be that hard, right?
Welcome back to Car-Pinionated, our weekly show on cars, the car industry, and driving in general. I'm joined by my good friend Jeff Buchholz, and he is in beautiful Chicago watching the sunset.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm Doug Stewart. I sometimes forget to introduce myself, and then people will watch the show. You didn't introduce yourself, Doug. You didn't. Yeah. Okay. I'm Doug Stewart, and I forget that sometimes. Anyway, um, one of the interesting things that's happened in the last couple weeks in the car world is that people actually got to touch the new Slate. And they invited people, automotive folks and influencers and YouTube folks and anyone who kind of had some sort of interest in electronics to, I assume it was California.
I
I
think that's right. Yeah.
yeah. And they took many of them for a ride, and then some of them got to drive the Slate. And for those of you who haven't been paying attention, the Slate was first talked about more than a year ago, and it's what everyone believes that that's what they want, a bare bones pickup truck. And say, well, why don't they make something bare, small pickup truck, bare bones, crank windows, da 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 da. And that's what this is. And the original intent was that it was going to be in the $20,000 range with the EV tax credit, which has gone the way of the dodo. And so, but they're now putting this price point out of $25,000. And then you buy a whole bunch of things. You can buy different tops for it and stuff. What are you thinking about the Slate, Jeff?
First of all, I was pleasantly surprised that they managed to bring it in with a list price under 25. Like that was when the EV tax credit disappeared. I'm like, well, this is going to screw with the whole business case for this vehicle. But under 25K, at least on the base price, is really good. Like that's pretty impressive that they found a way to do that. And it's a really pleasing looking little truck. It is satisfyingly kind of boxy and chunky. It's kind of what you want a truck to look like. And it is it is kind of the truck for the comments section, isn't it? Like it is, as you alluded to, is like, wow, I don't need all this fancy. We just did a whole episode on software in vehicles and if cars are being too much of a tech show. By gosh, for an EV, this is pretty much the opposite of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like you've got you get to crank your own windows, by God, just like Grandpa did. And and there's no, there's maybe a cradle for your phone, which probably is what.
I think is optional.
Oh yeah, I mean that's, I
Yeah.
mean, why, maybe it's wired for sound, or you can get it wired for sound, I
Mhm.
think. But everybody has their phones anyway, so why do you need to spend money on a head end unit? Like that's not necessary. And the idea that it's endlessly configurable is kind of cool. Like the little kind of SUV S10 Blazer looking back end on the that you can get on those
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
really nice. It gives me, we've probably made this comparison before, it gives me Pulsar NX a little bit, in the idea that it's like kind of modular. And I like the idea that a lot of the accessories are things that you can sort of put on it yourself. And they have
Mhm.
like kits for you to do that. Like if you want power windows on your truck, well, they'll ship you the power window kit and you just, you have to put it in. For a society that has figured out how to assemble flat pack furniture, I'm like, okay, it can't be that hard, right? And I think that a lot of
I
the
imagine the car coming in flat pack.
we're probably not that far from that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the like paint and color options are really interesting and kind of fun and a great way to in a reasonably, inexpensive way, I suppose, to customize a car if you want to
Mhm.
do it that way. I mean, most of these will probably end up selling for around 30K. If it, anything other than like a fleet customer. I totally see the main function for this, or the main market for this, being sort of, ancillary support vehicles for like construction companies and,
Mhm.
public utilities and that sort of thing. And it'd be easy for them to do that. I could see, our local electric utility buying a fleet of like 100 of them with like the SUV thing on the back, and get it in basic white, and Bob's your uncle. Like
Yeah.
that to me, I think that's where a lot of the sales are going to be initially. In much the way that like Ford's Maverick has been really popular with fleets as well, because it's pretty inexpensive and super useful. Um, the issue that I think they're going to have with a lot of private customers, which they shouldn't have, is the that old bugaboo range anxiety.
Mhm.
I think the max range on these, I think, is 200 now. They've managed to get it up to 200.
Yeah, to just over two or just over two, when it
Yeah,
was 180, and they
yeah.
had like two different batteries, but they've kind of
Mhm.
split the difference, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think 200 is plenty, particularly if it's like a knock around city vehicle. But I think that there are going to be people who will see that and be like, I don't know, one of these days
Mm.
I might want to tow my truck out to the lake, and
Mm.
and then they're off to F-150 land. But I think it comes as close as it can to um, the my ideal truck, which of course is a 2006 Ford Ranger. Only it's more environmentally friendly.
And if I remember correctly in our one of our discussions early on about this, my brother Dave, our resident electric pickup truck
Right.
expert,
Mm-hmm.
said that these are set up to kind of be first cars, first vehicles for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be dangerously fast. It's going to be useful. It's going to be plastic body panels that are going to be cheap to fix, and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. And how you're going to high school and back, you're going to college, and back, and you don't need those vehicles that will, be super, super expensive.
I
And,
think there's a lot to that. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I would have loved to have one of these to go off to college in. Are you
Mm,
kidding?
mhm,
It's perfect.
yeah. And I think they have been talking to fleets,
Mhm.
um to get them out there. And and again, this is a point I've made before, that that kind of corporate use case. Okay, so let's say we're talking about, for the TV station, that we decide that this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna change all our RAV4s and Jeep Cherokees to the Rivian, SUVs. Rivian, I keep doing this. The Slate SUVs.
Mhm.
And um they come back at night and they plug in, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, I know that our people do a lot of driving, but I don't think that they go 200 miles
Mhm.
a day,
Probably not.
and it's just a kind of a great use case for it.
Hmm.
Um, I I do the design, I like and I don't like.
Hmm.
Um, and I think once I see it in colors, when I see the wraps on them, I
Yeah,
like it a lot better.
I agree.
And there are, which they didn't show off initially, there were a lot of on the site now, there's a lot of nice wheel
Hmm.
setups. So those are good. But we're gonna take a quick break here, and we will come back and talk more about that. And I'd also like to get your thoughts on the Rivian R2.
Oh, sure.
And we're back talking electric vehicles with the new Slate pickup truck. When did I hear correctly that they'll start deliveries by the end of the year? Was that I
And I
heard?
know that was their target. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what they had said, I think, when they first announced.
Uh,
And if they're already like taking people around in prototypes, like I have to believe um, they're at least kind of on target with
yeah,
that, or they're not going to be too far off, I don't think.
right. And I think it's an advantage to the fact that it's so simplistic that I think it's going to be a lot less bugs to work out of the system.
Mhm.
If they're not, if they don't have to worry about the sudden failure of the computer controlled air vents on the car.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think I think building them is going to be, as you suggest, relatively straightforward. The thing that's going to be kind of labor intensive is going to happen after assembly. It's going to be the getting the wrap on the right car, getting the stripes, getting the making sure the right option packs are loaded into the car so that, when it gets shipped off, it has what it needs. But that's all stuff that happens after the assembly process, after the
Mhm.
hard part.
Right. And the pricing of the accessories, um, like seem to top out at like the most expensive accessories that I saw was like 1,500.
Hmm.
A lot of them were under 250.
Yeah. Yeah, because you look at it psychologically, you look at it and it's like, oh, well, I can afford the power window pack. I can afford the cradle
Mm,
for my phone. I can, I'll,
mm,
I'll put in a back seat, whatever. Like it makes it a whole lot easier. And the other thing that it does, and we might have talked about this when this first came out, you get the truck and then, you're 6 months in or a year in, and you go, you know what, I want power windows. And then you can
mm.
buy them.
Yeah. Although
Like,
I think there might be a delay on the power windows because
hmm.
I think that they had originally talked about it and then now there's like, well, that might be a future feature. Um,
Okay.
which okay, I could see it, at some point it's coming down the road, so to speak. The Yeah, I mean, good luck. Really good luck. And you mentioned this before, like either everyone's gonna want one or no one's gonna want one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge bet, actually. Yeah, I hope they sell a bunch of them because, I think we need more inexpensive vehicles, not fewer. And
Yeah,
right now we don't have very many. So to have this one come in and in such an appealing package, like, yeah, it's certainly a winner,
yeah.
at least on
So,
paper.
so you have cash in hand and you want to buy something in this price point. Uh, in your choices, say 2 years out, and I asked this of Brian Moody a couple weeks ago. What do you buy? Do you buy a Slate? Do you buy a Maverick hybrid, or do you wait for the Ford EV of the future, the $30,000 pickup truck?
Ooh. I think I wait for the Ford.
Okay.
Um, for a couple of reasons. I Not that I think this is a bad vehicle or is going to be an unreliable vehicle, but
Hmm.
there is something about uh, if we're talking about a new vehicle in its first year, there is something about buying a vehicle that has the sort of worldwide resources of Ford Motor Company that put it on the road and also can service it at any one of 3,500 quality dealers from coast to
Mhm.
coast. Like there
Absolutely.
is something about that it makes that a lot easier to think about.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's something to be said for more than 123 years of screwing cars together, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and you can say a lot of things about Ford in their recall situation, but
of course.
you're absolutely right. The fact that there's, a Ford dealer 2 miles that way and
Hmm.
another one 5 miles that way,
Hmm.
I feel more confident in it. I,
Hmm.
I might, I'm, I don't know. Part of me feels like I would go with the Maverick.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of bad choices in that
uh,
in those three, I don't think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And this is the Slate is considerably smaller than the Maverick too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, so there's another interesting electric vehicle that's been that is coming
Hmm.
to the greedy hands of customers.
Hmm.
And that would be the Rivian R2. And
Hmm.
we've been excited about Rivian. And what are you thinking about the R2?
It's a it is not at first glance terribly different from the R1, which I think I understand why they did it that way, but it also means that it might be just a tiny bit invisible. Um,
Mhm.
I live in the only state that has a Rivian assembly plant now, and so I see Rivians fairly frequently,
Yeah.
sort of out and about in the city, and they still they are not so novel or not so ordinary yet as to not sort of make me pause and take another look. That the what the Rivian designers call the stadium graphic, which is the sort of the down the road look, looking at the front, with those like oval daylight running lights and that sort of thing. It's a terribly well designed vehicle. I had a
Mhm.
great conversation a year ago with the head interior designer for Rivian, and we went through the interior of the R2 and the sort of the thoughtfulness in the way it went together and the sort of references that they were using. And it is. I think it's a really well designed vehicle, and I think that the powertrain itself has proven to be reasonably reliable. In that it not only powers the consumer cars, but I certainly see any number of Amazon delivery vans
A
that have,
lot of them.
yeah, essentially have the same underpinnings.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the headlights, but they all look very happy. They all seem to work just fine. Um, so I think it's really well designed. The issue I think with Rivian is going to be whether they can hang on long enough to build them.
Yeah.
There continues to be ongoing concerns about Rivian's ability to make money. I mean, it's still pretty early in their process, and up until now, they've only really had one model to sell. I hope that they can hang on long enough to build the R3, which is probably the one all of us are waiting for.
Mhm.
Your Lancia Delta Integrale slash GTI looking thing, which has the potential to be a game changer if they can bring it anywhere near where they want to sell it in
Right.
terms of MSRP. But I think the R2 is really good. I don't like I said, I think it looks a lot like the R1, and I don't know that it's usefully smaller than an R1, but it's still a great piece of kit, and
Right.
and like I said, I hope that getting a Rivian into customers' hands at a lower price point will bring more people in. Obviously, like every EV only maker, I mean, they got an uphill climb right now, at least in the US.
Right. And I think, I mean, they're following the Tesla model of, once they got to the three, then, you know, and I think it's really priced very competitively. I really think that price point I mean, they're not selling them now for 45, but they're $10,000 above that, and I get it. But that in that area is, that sweet spot in the market, the RAV4, the CRV, all those right there in line. I continue to say that I those interiors are just beautiful. You
Yeah.
know, they're just really thoughtful
Hmm.
and pleasant to look at, and not this cartoonish
Hmm.
mess that I think so many cars are now.
Hmm.
Um, so that's a plus for me.
Yeah,
Um,
the big question with the R2, and I think it's smart for them to bring it out now, is, and to get it on the road before, if indeed this happens, before Scout can come to market.
mhm.
And I think this podcast is a huge fan of the Scout. But I just heard in the car today as I was driving around that Volkswagen is cutting a bunch of jobs. They're closing assembly plants.
Yeah,
Like it
horrible
is,
deal.
they are not in great shape right now.
Hmm.
And there's between issues at the home office and also the Volkswagen dealer group being concerned about how Scouts are going to be sold in this country. There's a lot of roadblocks coming up here, kind of at the point where we would start to see Scout prototypes out. We would start to have seen, because my recollection is that they were talking about 26, 27 for a launch. Or
Hmm.
am I early on that? Or is it more like 28?
I think it's 28. I
Okay.
I
I
will
mean,
put
we
it
would
right in
have
here.
seen we would have seen more
Something.
action by now, I
If
think.
you think that the Scout timeline is roughly with the Ford Universal EV timeline,
Okay.
we've seen those Fords, at least one of
Mm-hmm.
them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right.
There hasn't been a lot with Scouts since
No.
those, the like launch videos and that kind of thing that everybody got all excited about, and justly so, because it's a dynamite looking car. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe what'll end up happening here is VW will end up like you know, selling Scout to Rivian, or I don't, some kind of a joint venture. I think a lot of people predicted that when they first saw the Scout
Mhm.
and saw the kind of superficial resemblances to the
Mhm.
Rivian.
Is
Um,
is 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 the Scout bigger than the R2, or is it what kind of I'm not.
I'm trying to remember now. I think it might be kind of a little bit in between.
So our friend Martha in LA
Yes.
saw them at the LA Auto Show,
Mm.
and she thought that the size was bigger than what she expected.
Ah,
I
okay.
don't know. I mean,
All right.
we could look up the wheelbase somewhere,
Yeah.
but yeah, but but I think I do think that they're somewhere in between the two, and I think it's playing a little bit higher up than maybe it's like the Toyota um, Grand
Highlander?
Grand Highlander. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know why I kept in my head. Caravan was the word that was kind of coming.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah. Like,
And can I say this? Okay. I have noticed a really, really, really annoying trend of car makers not making their name plates on cars stand out. Like
mm,
it's the same color in the
mm-hmm,
where they put the thing,
mm-hmm,
and you
mm-hmm,
gotta get close to it. Like,
mm-hmm.
oh, that's what that is. Huh. I don't like it. And I'm going to just make that clear right here because, I'm sure that Toyota is listening to us again.
I will say that I thought the decision by Toyota to take the Lexus L badge off the back of their cars and have this like Lexus script across the back of particularly like the RX and that kind of thing. I felt like that was a step backward as
Yeah.
well in terms of iconography. And I just saw and I haven't seen one in person yet, but I just saw a picture of the new Honda Prelude, and it does the same thing that the Prologue did, where it spells out Honda in block letters across the back and instead of the H.
Right.
And that
Right.
bothers me. It's
Yeah.
like it feels like a knockoff from Timu. Like, what are we doing, man? You only spent 50 years, building brand equity around this H, and now we're not using it anymore? Like,
Right.
what's happening? It's not broke. What's
Right.
happening? It's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, I think that Rivian is better placed to be a success than Lucid is. I worry a lot about Lucid. I think, and
Hmm.
not about their product, but I think that I really wonder because they've lost a lot of their top management
Hmm. Yeah.
very recently. So
Mhm.
I hesitate for them. Um,
And at some point, and they have a significant, my recollection is the investment group is significantly represented by interests in Saudi Arabia. And I
Yes.
have to believe that at some point the Saudis are going to decide to stop throwing good money after bad.
Right. Right.
And then it's a problem.
Right. I did see I did see the Gravity,
Mm-hmm.
the SUV.
Yeah, I
And
saw one at I think I've seen one out, one or two of them out and about.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like trying to get close to it, and then it pulled into a Kohl's parking lot. And I was like, I'm gonna go talk to this person. That's not normally what I do, but it's,
No.
yeah. And then I saw it was a woman. I'm like, I'm not going up to talk to
Yeah,
her
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
that's
That's
just
not good.
creepy.
That's creepy. That's creepy. Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
So anyway. All right. We're gonna close this one. We're gonna land the plane. Luggage may have shifted in the overhead compartments. Um,
Same.
and as we get older, that luggage just stops
Sure
working.
does.
So yeah.
Sure does, man.
All right. It's been great talking with you. And
Yes.
remember, you can look up old episodes on Car-Pinionated on YouTube. And with that, we will see you next time.